Hey, I'm Adam Pretorius with LKR, and I'm here today with Russ Yoder, also with LKR.
Oh, it's glad to be here, Adam.
This is exciting. I'm really excited about the topic we're going to talk about today. Today, we're going to talk all about market cycles in real estate. And I don't think the average user or viewer knows this. I mean, I didn't realize when I got into real estate that there's two markets, right? You have your national market that syncs up with everyone else in the U.S., which is in the spring. Typically here, it starts at spring break as our signal for the first day it starts. So that's March. And then it ends like the end of May. And then the slowest months of the year are August and July in that order. I never thought that, like, you would think like January would be slower, but honestly, it's August and July. No one wants to, it's too hot and, they're getting ready for school or, getting the family ready or going back to work or what have you. They're doing family vacations. But we have a fall market in Iowa City, which not a lot of places have. And that second market, it's not as cyclical, but sometimes it starts in September, sometimes it doesn't start till November. But we have two markets, which is exciting.
Yes. And that's something I didn't realize when getting into this, that there is two markets in Iowa City. I didn't realize July and August was slow like it was. That was very concerning when I first got started. I was like, what's going on here? What am I doing wrong? But no, that's the way it is.
You do your vacation. I remember I did my vacation once in August because there was nothing to do. And I go out to Vegas and they drive the Venetian because that's their slow time too. There's nothing even there. So it was like a dead time to go do a vacation because it's like the worst time to go on vacation because if you go down the Bahamas, it's all like hurricane season. But anyways, neither here nor there. August and July, two slowest months of the year for buyers. You and I are still busy because we're doing spring cleanup. We still got some sales that we're closing out and stuff. But for buyers, there's like zero activity.
None. But yeah, right now, super busy. A lot of, I'm getting acreages. Acreages seem to be pretty hot right now.
So farm cycles are interesting too, now that you're talking about cycles. Because for farm cycles, you have, the prep work that's going in to start for next year's yield. But then you also sometimes have a lot of leased land with landlord tenants going on. And that renewal period is when? Can you tell?
Well, people, if you're not going to rent your ground out, you have to let them know by August of the previous year. So
otherwise, it just assumes that it turns.
It assumes that it turns. And so, and a lot of farm sales are in the fall and wintertime. And it's been some crazy, there's some good farm sales going on right now. I think it's pulled back a little bit because of higher interest rates and input costs. And now the corn and soybean market's really come down a lot since like over $1 here in the last year.
So when I say that there's a housing market in the spring and fall, when do you see this typical farm market? When do you think that kind of starts and it's hottest before it goes cold again?
It's in the fall winter time.
Fall winter.
Yeah, that's when everybody.
So now we're kind of going into the cold period.
Because if you're selling your farm in the later months, somebody else is going to farm it. So you're really not you'll be getting rent, but you won't be able to farm it. And it's sometimes, depending on who's buying it, if you're an investor, that's okay.
Yeah, you might want to roll the lease over anyways.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But it's an election year and nothing is certain, right? I mean, the elections are all about volatility.
It's getting interesting earlier and earlier, it seems like. And this is, oh my, look out. Here we go.
I tell you, I've had, this is 16 years for me. And so this will be my fourth or fifth election. And every election year, we hit a cliff at the end of August. And there's just nothing going on in the fall. So that normal market where we have a spring and a fall, there's just no fall this year. So I don't know about you, but I'm gathering up all my sales, working every second of the day right now, because once we hit the end of August, it's vacation time. In fact, cue the graphic. My abs don't look like that.
That's always interesting. I just want to let everybody know that wasn't my idea. But
hey,
awesome
vacation though. I'm gearing up for this fall because people react and look, I know that the biggest factor driving election years is psychological factors. But what do you think a couple of those things are that really drive the fact that people just get so much anxiety?
Well, the unknown. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. You could go back and forth, not to get too political, but when Dodd-Frank came on, I know there was a great big bank that I talked to one of the vice presidents in my former life. They had to hire 6,000 people to keep up with the regulation. And, we need regulation in this country, but there's always they always tend to overregulate, and then we got to step back.
So I like to think that there's three things that we're looking at, right? Like, so you mentioned you got policy changes. So regardless of which party you're going for, like, you don't know what the next policies are going to be. And the big thing in policies is people are worried about affordability, right? Like, how's that policy change going to affect my ability to afford my mortgage or just housing affordability in general, like, anything from your daily taxes to gas prices to those kind of things. So you got policy changes. You got economic uncertainty. You don't know what next administration will bring as far as economic concerns. But I think the third thing, which goes back to the psychological factor, is you have market volatility, right? And the markets react short term. They're going to react to what's going on in the news and the hype and everything that you hear, which, creates uncertainty, and then that creates concerns, because regardless of which party you're going for, you're really concerned that, if my person doesn't win on November 5th, the world's going to end, right? And so it's like that mentality really sits in. But I think it doesn't hit till midsummer when all the news starts covering it, and it's like really like front in your face and like vote for this person or the world will end,
A guy told me once after 9/11, nobody walked into his hair salon for 2 weeks because everybody was scared. And, that's just the way people think. And, there's a lot of uncertainty out there.
But it's not all doom and gloom, because the psychological factor plays in way more than we think, right? I mean, if we even look at interest rates, which neither party technically control, right? Like, that's all in the Fed's, in the Fed's wheelhouse. We go back to December, and the economists were all doing a 90% bet that we would see interest rates drop in March. Okay, as if I think it was yesterday that new betting odds are 9%. So they went from 90 to 9%. In fact, now the bet is that they'll do a rate drop in May, and those odds are only 60% and dropping. So you just don't know. But we react short term. Mm-hmm. But the markets
overreact.
The markets live on long term, which brings up that, look, we have a very good democratic system that regardless of which party wins, the short-term policies, the short-term changes to offices, really long-term won't make significant changes to the economy, right? Long-term, we are going to have stability. And that brings me down to this. Regardless of who wins, keep in mind that there's hundreds and hundreds of people that are really running the show behind the scene.
Absolutely.
And the sun will come up tomorrow.
The sun will come up tomorrow. Tomorrow. I love you. Tomorrow. You're always a day away.
Thanks, Russ.
You bet.